Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Sorcerer Tal. You can also find me online at thesorcerersguild.com as well as on Facebook at the Sorcerers Guild. Today on Magical Theory, we are going to be talking about invocation, possession, and what is a demon. Okay, so these are actually three separate things, even though the first two are actually quite closely related, and of course a lot of people associate demons with both invocation and possession as well. But we're going to address them one topic at a time. Alright, so let's start with invocation. This is the one that most of us that are actually spellcasters are the most familiar with. This is drawing a spirit down into the self. Yeah? And when it's an invocation, that implies that this was an intentional thing. We actually call these spirits to enter down into us. In some of my videos, you will actually see me invoking spirits from time to time. And how we do this? Well, there are several ways to do this, depending on who we are working with. But the biggest thing is simply to allow. To allow them to take on that role. And at first, this can even feel like it depends on the skill of the practitioner. It depends on the skill of the practitioner, yes. But on the skill of the spirit as the practitioner in using a body. Yeah? There are some spirits that I work with that when I allow them in, it's like there's a piece of me in the back of my head telling me what to say, and I'm mostly repeating what that voice is saying in my head. And they're there. It's a foreign presence in my head, but it's like I'm just cooperating with it. And because it doesn't have the skill. And of course, there's skill on our side as well. And we'll get to that in a moment. But since I started with this part, we'll go with this. And there are other spirits that when they take over, my voice will change, my mannerisms change to some extent depending on who it is. And a lot of that isn't dependent on the human, the person who owns the body that is casting the spell or doing the invocation. A lot of that will also depend on who it is you're invoking, how powerful they are, how attuned they are to your particular body, and their actual skill level in how to operate inside of a human form. Okay, so that is what our concern there is then, is who we let in. And that is one of the most important things about all this when we are talking about invocation. Of all the things that we do, invocation, and when we get into possession, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but of all the more common things that practitioners do, invocation is one of the ones where there is the most potential for trouble. So we want to be very clear in who we summon, what reason, and under what circumstances. Because there are, in voodoo, there are many things where they're working up these chants and they bring particular spirits to be ridden. Or they bring spirits to ride one of the practitioners, and they will actually choose their own practitioner amongst the people there. Now, I really don't want to start speaking a lot for their tradition. That's not my place. I'm just saying that they are using an invocation as well when they're doing the writing. It's an intentional drawing up of the spirit. And that's why you never know exactly which one it's going to pick, because it finds the one it is able to attune to the most. But again, that's not my place to talk about their practices. They are not mine. But, like I said, we want to be careful about who we summon and in what circumstances. Yeah, we don't want to summon some primordial beast in the middle of a grocery store, right? We probably shouldn't be invoking anyone in the middle of a grocery store. But when we bring things into our body, we want to be careful about who and for what purpose. A lot of people use invocation for healing, to actually invoke a healer into them and help them heal their own body from the inside. And there are many different spirits you can get into, you can choose for that. I'm actually not going to get into specifics there on this video, maybe in another video. I mean, you could use Diosk. That's how I use Diosk. So I guess we are going to get into one specific, the Horde's astral surgeon, Diosk. And when you summon him, you won't really hear much of anything in your head other than you'll know what it is your hands want. Because he will reach for the things. And if you begin summoning him on a regular basis, you will need the bone scalpel and the pendulum, like I talked about in other videos. But that's very much an invocation process. And he doesn't just work with you. If you begin summoning him on a regular basis, there's a good chance he will help you work with other people as well. And in order to contact him, you just need to think on Diosk and make yourself a bone scalpel, which is just a sharpened, polished piece of bone that is designed to look like it is sharp. It doesn't have to be that sharp. It just has to have an edge. And a pendulum, and focus on his name while holding the pendulum, like so, and the bone scalpel in the other hand, and just allowing it to spin and focusing on his name. After a while, you will feel your hand start to move, and he will be teaching you how to do it. So that's another part to be clear with that, is he doesn't stay within the process. He simply guides your hands and teaches you how to do his types of cord cuttings and other cutting away of astral energies that are done with the bone scalpel and the pendulum. We'll probably have more videos on that in the future about how to do that. But anyways, I feel I'm getting a bit off track. Let's get to a little more about our side of that. So often you're going to still be using a sigil, but you're willing them into yourself. And as you are doing this, like I said, first you want to be very clear about who, and you want to set up the room, prepare your area for this being's presence. Whichever being it is, you'll do the research to find out what it is that would be appropriate for that. But this is one area where you really want to be the astral lawyer, like the cliche in the old demon summoning books, yeah? Because you're allowing this person into your body. And you want to be very clear about what they can and cannot do. Because, well, you don't want them doing things in your body that might harm you or others, depending on who you summon. I realize that's not likely a case with some spirits, but it's always a good precaution to be clear about what is and what is not allowed in your body to happen while they're using your body, and who is allowed in your body, of course, as well. But we want to make it clear, and we want to also be clear of how long they can be there and when they must leave. And some people, they will completely feel themselves go away during an invocation. Me, I'm always, at least a small piece of me is there. Except barring a few occasions where I wasn't in a good mental state. And so that's more of a possession, but we'll get to that. There's one of the differences often between invocation and possession. And I mentioned the writing. That's maybe kind of in between, but it's still voluntary. Because a lot of times when people are ridden, they don't remember what happened. That's very common. So it's kind of so I suppose it's kind of in between. It's its own category, right? It's its own category that I'm not going to be spending a lot of time speaking on. Because it's not my area. I mean, I have studied some voodoo, but that's not something I'm going to teach. You know, we don't want to get into cultural appropriation issues. If you want to know about that, seek one of them out. Okay, so, where were we? I was talking about, let's see. So we've talked about just about everything we can with the invocation. Anything else I want to cover there? Oh, we covered how it's different levels of it, and you want to allow and be very clear about who you're bringing in. This is a good time to cast a circle if you're not sure about the being, and be very clear about what it can and cannot do. It's best to say you can only do these things. If it's someone that you're working with, don't go with can'ts. Just do it. You can only. That way they don't have a bunch of wiggle room, right? So anyways, let's go beyond that. And next we will start talking about possession. Possession. Oh, I'm going to bring up one more thing while we're in the invocation discussion, especially since with invocation you are almost always fully present to some extent. Well, not fully present, but there's often a little piece of you that's left during the process, no matter the skill level of the being. Well, that does vary. There are people that invoke and have no memory of it all afterwards. But there's usually a little piece of you there. And the important thing to remember here, and I'm going to remind you about this in all 3 segments, no matter how terrifying, no matter how powerful, no matter what this being has convinced you of, if it has got you scared and believing that you are powerless against it, it is not true. You are the person that were born into your body, and you cannot lose control of that body. It cannot be taken from you. Yeah? All you have to do is understand that, and they can't force your body to do anything that you wouldn't allow it to do. And that's why the contract is important. That's what seals the whole thing. Okay, so now on to possession. Possession is most often not voluntary. There are reasons we might use the possession process, and in fact, some of the processes you have seen me go through when I was describing the glossolalia and demonstrating glossolalia, that last one that I brought up, that is essentially a form of possession, but it is possession by the self. Yeah? That is a form of gnosis where you allow the inner frenzy, the inner rage within your own body to take possession of you. And there are many different methods to do that. I hesitate to get into specifics on that in a public forum because it is something that you need to have a very balanced mind. We may get into it at some point, but we're not going to talk about it just here right off the bat, where you would have to work up and explain how that process works, because it's a pretty intense experience to allow the inner beast to rise like that. Yeah, we can talk about the belly fire, and you can do a lot of things with that. And this is, I will say that it started as a wearable tulpa in the way that I do it. The way that I demonstrated in the video is more of a dervish technique. Well, it's focused on that idea and then twisted into bringing up the frenzy gnosis rather than the original type of spinning trance when they tied the knife on. Anyways, I'll leave a video for that up here if you want to get into that. Let's get back to possession. So, possession is something that is most often involuntary or something that happens in intense emotional states. There are people that get possessed in moments of anger or possibly moments of fear. And most often with these, we'll get partial possessions. We have things that cling to us, that feed on emotions sometimes. Yeah, there's a lot of different parasites that will feed on our anger, our fear, whatever emotion it is that they desire. So when we begin rising up in this emotion, they will begin possessing a small part of you and feeding off of that and helping you, making you get angrier or more scared or more insecure. Almost always it's negative emotions, because those are the things that are most often easiest to affect. Yeah, and I suppose that's the difference between a parasite and a symbiote, right? A symbiote, something that's symbiotic with you, like if you had a spirit that was constantly making you happy or smarter or more balanced and feeding off of that energy, that'd be more like a symbiote. So it's actually an interesting idea. Perhaps, well, we'll get onto that in the future, yeah? That's an interesting idea. The idea of a, well, like, I was thinking like a, spontaneous, like what are the regenerating servitors that we talked about before? The spontaneously regenerating servitors, a servitor that pops up every time you're happy and helps increase that. Or maybe not happy, because you wouldn't want to be deliriously happy, but during times of upset to help you calm, Perhaps a replicating servitor or regenerating servitor of some type would be good for something like that. But that would be a future video and experimental magic. Getting off track a lot today here. Let's get back to possession. Okay, so possession is almost always involuntary, and it usually involves some feeling like you can't control it if it gets, even if you're not fully aware that it's something pushing on you. Because these minor possessions, we don't know about it. Yeah, that's part of how they work. If we realize there's some little thing, little devil on our shoulder making us angrier, we're going to grab the devil and throw him off, right? So we don't want us to know he's there. So these things hide from us. But anytime you're feeling yourself irrationally angry or irrationally depressed, one of these things could be part of the cause. You know, they're maybe not always the full cause. In fact, almost always, they're not the whole problem. But when they see someone with these issues, if you have anxiety issues, anger issues, anything like that, these things can come to exacerbate that and make it worse and feed off of it. So even if you do have issues, it's a good idea to check for these things and see if they can kind of mitigate it and make things a little better by plucking off these things. We can do that with the cord cuttings like I mentioned earlier. In fact, Diosk, again, he's a great one for that. You call him into your hands, and if there's anything on you, he's just going to grab up and pluck it off as soon as he's got control of your hands. Even with him, just for practice purposes and, you know, just to maintain the routine, do tell him that he can't, you know, do horrible things while he's in your body. He's not going to, if you forget, but just to keep it up, I would suggest. He won't be offended, especially after I've brought this up. Anyways, so, possession is often something we don't know about. A lot of times they're involved with addictions, stuff like that. And a lot of times people call those demons. But to me, a better word would be little devils. These are little created lower soul things that need that energy to feed. They bedevil us. Yeah? A demon is a much older thing. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But we're going to continue on with this possession thing. I'm going to say it once again. It's more important here. No matter how terrifying the thing is. If you feel something actually taking over you, so we're at the point where it's actually feeling something trying to take control of you, it does not matter how powerful it is, how powerless it makes you feel. Inside your body, inside your head, you have all the power. You and your brain. That's the only thing that can defy you. If you have, you know, some mental disorders like a lot of us do, myself included, with my ADD and such. But nothing from outside can take your power from away on the inside. This is your own pocket reality. This is your dimension. It is yours, and nothing can force you to do anything in this body if you refuse. They can make you think that you do things that you don't want to do. But in the end, your hands are always on the steering wheel. It's your car. The only thing that can resist you is there's something wrong with the car itself. Okay. So, we have talked a little bit even about how to create a wearable tulpa to allow certain forms of possession. There are some times where people do intentionally cause forms of possession. It most often involves frenzy gnosis or some other form of gnosis or wearable tulpas. I'll leave a video for the wearable tulpas. Okay. So, getting rid of a possession. Yes. This is different than demons. Okay? So we will talk a little bit about getting something out of someone. Now remember what I just said, right? About you are in control. Well, when the person you're trying to get the demon out of, or it's not going to be a demon. Well, it's possible. Anyways, whatever it is you're trying to get out of somebody, so whatever spirit it is that is anchored in them, and they believe is actually taking control of their body. Yes, there are things you can do that will actually hurt the demon. You can blow smoke at it, you can banish, I keep saying the word demon. It is possible that you're getting possessed that would be by a demon. But this is ultimately what you need to do. Whether this be a inner created thing, outer created thing, is convince the person that it is gone. Yeah? Or at least convince them that you have power over it, that you are more powerful than it. Whatever it is inside of them, that you are more powerful than it, and can make it leave. Because as soon as they believe it's forced out, they just forced it out. Yeah? Anytime you're trying to get rid of possession, it's not you that has the power. It's not the spirit that has the power. It's the person being possessed. So you have to convince them that it's gone, or manage to convince them that they can cast it out, is ideally, right? Is to convince the person that they can cast it out, or convince them that you can. But they need to be convinced, because that's the whole trick, is making them do it. Whether by consciously doing it, or believing they can do it. Either way, that's the whole game. All you got to do, convince them it is gone. A lot of chanting, jumping up and down is what I normally do. I usually go with a little bit of them intimidation. This is one of the areas where you want to be scary to the demon, right? Because then the person that you're doing this in front of then believes, well, maybe he is scarier than the demon. Maybe he can cast out the demon. And then you tell them, well, you can cast it out. And work from there. A lot of psychology involved in removing a possession. And if you can avoid such work, stay the heck away from it. That is a very dangerous area. A lot of times you're dealing with people that don't want whatever is wrong with them to stop. They just want attention. So be very careful dealing in that area. A lot of red flags. But if it must be done, that is how. So, now, on to demons. So, what are demons? Now, other people are going to disagree with my definitions here. The Goetia, most of them are not demons. Those are demonized spirits. And some of them have agreed to essentially take on that role because that's how people, that's the most attention they're getting. That's the most work they're getting. That's the most business, if you want to look at it in that sense. Because they have reasons for wanting the things that they want. They want the things that they are offered for one reason or another. And, okay, you're calling me a demon, but you're giving me what I want. So a lot of them go ahead and play that role. But very few of those are what I would classify as a demon, though they are astral beings. Okay? Now here's the key thing where a lot of people are going to disagree with me. Some of them things I talked about before, them lower soul things, and those can get into you, but they don't usually want you to know they're there. Lower souled beings that exist on this side of the veil and are just energetic forms. They are not likely to try and take over your body. They are likely to attach and try to feed onto you and try to avoid being detected and possess you through pushing you to be more and more of whatever it is that they need to create, or even create it in other people. Okay. That are nearby, because they can feed off of that as well. Okay, so a demon is an astral being. Anything that exists on the lower plane with us as its primary form is not a demon. That is not to say that a demon, being a soul, can't get into a body. Most of the things that we invoke are not beings from anywhere on the material plane. They are astral beings. That is where their primary focus of existence is. And everything exists on all three planes. So there is, in some ways, a material component to them, but not a form. It's just areas that kind of have their presence. Yeah? Like their temples when you're dealing with gods. So, a demon. A demon is neither is a demon a fallen angel. A fallen angel is a fallen angel. That's all it is. And some people like to define that as a demon. And perhaps there's a lot of, wiggle room there, right? Depends on how you really want to use your vocabulary. But for me, a demon is an astral being from a primordial source, such as rage, fire, chaos, the primordial elements. Now you're going to notice a lot of similarities in what I'm saying here from the episode about dragons. And there's a reason for that. I'm not saying dragons and demons are the same thing. Dragons, as we have talked about in previous videos, are primarily an energetic form on the material plane. But they are created in a similar way. They are created from an element's destructive force. And demons are the astral version of that. There are demons of fire, demons of water, like in a hurricane, right? That's their physical manifestations. Is in flames, in tornadoes, in things like that. But they themselves are astral beings. And they are not necessarily evil. In fact, in my experience, most demons are very reasonable beings that can be worked with, as long as you treat them with respect and treat them as what they are. So, when you summon a demon for the first time, don't leave your bell behind, or whatever it is you use to banish. Don't bring your selenite rod with you, simply because not having it is an insult. Yeah? You think they're not dangerous? They are. Never treat a demon like he's not dangerous. That's an insult. And he might take exception to it. So, we always treat demons like they are dangerous, but that doesn't mean we treat them that doesn't mean we treat them fearfully. Demons are another one of these beings that have an adverse reaction to fear. With the demon, it is unpleasant at first, but it can create a frenzy in them. So it is very important with a being like that, with demons, that we do not react with fear when we are working with them, because that can work them up. They don't like it, but then they want more after a minute. It's just like when you slap somebody in the face to make them mad, and then they get madder and madder. It's kind of the same thing with the fear. It pricks them, and then they get mad, and then, well, I think you get the idea. So, we don't want to be fearful when working with demons, but we do want to be respectful and treat them as what they are. Most demons have a sigil, and they are not as commonly known. A lot of the actual things that I refer to as demons might not be that interested in working with us. But if we can offer them something they want and acquire their name and or sigil, it is possible to get their attention and potentially work with them. Fire demons are fairly easy to work with. I will actually make an addendum to this. There is a particular fire demon that I have worked with on many occasions that may be willing to have his name and sigil given. I will have to, but I'm not going to do that without permission, of course. So there may be an addendum to this. No guarantees there. Let's see. What else do I want to get out about demons? Yes. Demons can possess things, and they can even sometimes possess energetic forms. So, it is possible to have a demon manifest. You actually can, if you're good enough at it, summon a demon down to the material plane and have it manifest before you, just as it is with any spirit. Of course, this takes a lot of work. You're not going to get that every time. And just because you didn't see a face doesn't mean you're not working with the spirit. With things like fire demons, you're going to be lighting a fire and bringing that fire up and feeding it the things that particular fire demon likes, which is going to be wood or sulfur or some flammable agent. If it has one particular one it requests, then that's the one you're going to want to work with. But at first you're just going to want to build a fire, speak their name into the fire. If they have their sigil, you would draw it on a piece of wood, burn it with the fire, and speak their name into the fire to get their attention, and you would be looking for the manifestation within the flames themselves, or perhaps the smoke, but most likely within the flame itself. But, like I said, we're going to hopefully do an addendum to this, and I will do a demonstration on how to work with a particular fire demon if he accepts my proposal. Okay. So, what can we get from demons? Well, the most obvious is they are destructive. They can help you destroy obstacles, enemies, if you're needing to do any curse work, help you find out who is cursing you depending on the demon you're working with. There are many different types. Yeah? And, like I said, most of the actual demons aren't as well advertised as others. So this is someone, if you want to work with demons, you might want to actually summon someone from the Goetia and request a name. Yeah, because most actual demons are not going to be in books. Not that the Goetia are not powerful beings. Yeah, I am not in any way discouraging anyone from working with the Goetia. There are many spirits in the Goetia that I am very impressed with. I have had great experiences with. King Paimon, for one, did some great work on my astral platform. But these are not demons. These are astral beings. And they will play a demonic role because that's what they're expected to play. Yeah, they're basically letting you have your way with that stuff is what's going on there because, well, why not? Doesn't really hurt them that much. They've taken on a slightly different form and agreed to work within this created thing. And they still have friends outside of it, so that would probably be a very good way to get in contact with actual demons. Would be to summon someone from the Goetia. Again, I'm not going to offer any particular names because I don't feel that would be polite. So, but that would be a way to that'd be another way to get in contact with an actual demon, or simply make it known, and perhaps one will come to you. But if you do that, make it known that they have to contact you in a safe way, in a certain area, and have something set up as a protection so that it's not insulting. And always make with whatever these people ask for. Yeah, you're working with a demon, and he asks for something, make with it. If he asks you for something you can't do or cause yourself to harm to you or others, stop working with that demon. Don't do nothing crazy, okay? There's people that have done some pretty wild stuff in the names of spirits, and a lot of times the ones that are asking you to do messed up stuff aren't going to make with their end of it. Yeah? Basically, they're trolls. They're saying, oh yeah, if you go and do this horrible atrocity, then I'll give you all this wonderful things. Nah. You already did the atrocity. They already got what they wanted. Why would they not giving it to you gets them to do even more, gets them to watch even more horrible things. But the odds of an actual demon wanting that are actually pretty small. They get enough destruction on their own. They don't care about harming humans. That's nothing to them. Most of the things that you're going to ask for stuff like that are these things that are on this side, just barely on this side of the veil in energetic forms, like things I referred to as devils. Because they're the ones that need that stuff. They need that flow of energy, all that type of thing. But again, they're just as likely to cheat you too. So don't ever agree to harm anyone for a spell, in my opinion. That is my advice on that. Okay, so I think that's going to be it for this episode. Thank you once again for joining me. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. Until next time, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.